Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twilight Epiphanies Talk Radio with Cindy Magnuson, and the show is about to begin. So, slow down, take a seat, put your feet up, and maybe take some notes, because this show is about you, it's for you, and it is designed to help you receive exactly what you need to be a happier and healthier you. Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for joining me again tonight, both live and in this archive. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, am Cindy Magnuson. I own C, Source Energy Epiphanies, and I'm the founder of the C Technique EFT Plus. My website is thectechnique.com, and that will give you all the details about not only the other work that I do, but the services that I offer both online and in person. So tonight we're talking about intuition. And, you know, when I first think of intuition, my thought is it's such a space that is so very easily overlooked. It has this feel of it as being maybe special to some people and not special that everyone has this ability. And then at the same time, it just feels like there's a sense of it not having been given the full credit that it needs to be given. So tonight is about this one little word and how vastly important this particular space is, that we tune back into this ability and primarily here realize that this is an inherent, divinely granted gift that we all have. It's actually a set of gifts that we have, and we call them gifts because it's something that is so special that we look at it as something that's been granted to us, but we still need to receive it like a gift. However, back in the day and once upon a time in a faraway place, we all utilized our intuition for the better and the good of the all. And we are being called again in the very many multitude of ways that we are moving through experiences with intuition, once again, to call back on, to retune in to this ability, because it can have a very profound effect on what we're moving through. So, what is intuition? When we first say the word, we think of a gut feeling. Someone says, oh, my intuition was telling me about that, so I heeded the warning, or, oh, my intuition was telling me not to do that, and I did it anyways and found out I should have followed my intuition. And then there are also other times when you hear someone saying, I followed my intuition, but I was wrong. And what this is telling us is that intuition in what is being received is not very easy these days to differentiate within ourselves. So when we say intuition, we are talking about subtle energy perceptions, feelings, a sense of smell, a sense of taste, a vision inside us, a gut feeling, a sudden fear feeling, a sudden feeling of warning, a sudden feeling that someone needs us or is thinking about us. We might hear something in our ear. It comes in a multitude of different ways, but the avenues that it comes through is subtle. And all it takes is primarily your intention, your focus, your desire, and your passion to want to tune into your intuitive perceptions and refine the ability to receive them in a clear state of reference. And that's what we're going to work on. Why is it difficult to differentiate in feelings? And what's it going to take for us to really increase, all of us, our own intuitive faculties that we each have? And what we find out is that some of us came in already with more highly developed areas because we've been focused on that. We worked on it, and it's what we wanted to keep with us. And even meaning that you might have one area strong, you might be very clairvoyant, or you might be very empathic, or you might hear, a guidance more from a clairaudience. So each one of us tends to have special areas that we are already more refined in and developed, and yet we can open up these other senses if we feel a need to or want to. And also when we're looking at it, there is no one way that we all tend to receive, let's say, for example, clairvoyance. People can use this image in the mind's eye in very many different ways. It always makes me think of, there was this psychic investigations show. It was a show, that was on Netflix, but it was a while ago. I don't think I've seen it anymore. But it took the audience through psychic investigations, and each one of those intuitive people used their skills in a very different way, which fascinated me the most, that it was showing us how we have to move with how it is our art. I call it an art. Whenever I teach anything, I try to leave the space open for your own way that you move into it and create your interaction with some perception that you have. So tonight you're discovering your art. These psychic detectives, some of them would simply want to be on the phone talking with someone, asking questions. A different psychic would want, perhaps if someone, transitioned and maybe there was, a missing persons or a murder investigation, an item of the person who is no longer with us in order to tune in. Another person would do a shamanic journey to the site and visualize it from there. Another psychic would go to the site also in their mind, but not particularly in a shamanic journey, leaving the body. They would just psychically tune into the space, and literally they would see the crime being perpetrated at that time. They could literally stand behind the person who is going to commit the crime and watch them commit it. So it was imprinted in time there. It was imprinted in the entire space, as everything does get recorded. And that is a big part of what intuitive work is also. It's that we can read impressions that are, especially even if we think of within the waters, what has been recorded. So everything is recorded and can be read and transmuted into our other psychic senses. We know that there are intuitive psychic people who do psychometry, for example. So many, many different ways here. So I want to leave the audience open for however your intuitive abilities come. We do not need to compare them to anyone else's. Do what you feel you're being led into doing. So, and looking at intuition and why hasn't this been something that's being taught from childhood? So there's something very important as to why intuition is, in a sense, being kept from us. And it's not difficult to look at history and see that for a long period of time already now, the peoples who were here, who have been very connected to their intuitive abilities, being connected to source energy, to the earth energies, to nature, have been attacked, eliminated, removed, suppressed. And part of the reason for that is to disconnect from source, to have a generation such as has been developed in our current modern world. Are very many people who do not have the memory of being connected to source information, being able to read subtle energies, being able to be divinely guided, because the consciousness of source, God, nature is a virtual construct that is always informing you if you are interested in asking. So there is that space also that intuition encompasses our ability to receive information from nature in the way of signs and omens. And in past cultures that were here, part of our DNA and part of our original DNA structure created from source is that we were highly intuitive and able to tune in to source information field before we did something or before we even constructed something or manifested it here, and ask what the outcome would be of manifesting that here. So we are very far from that space of divine guidance in very many ways, yet to many of the people that I'm speaking to here tonight, we are tuning back in to this information. And it's a slow process, and tonight's show is about bringing this back, not only for what it can personally do for us here, but for what it does as a collective to put a halt on the energy systems of control here that have disrupted our connection to source. So that overall is our primary work, and very much reason why what's happening in the world is that there is a draw right now for many people who will walk down the path of, instead of retuning in to their limitless potentials through going back to how source energy created our original vehicles here, and tuning into that template that on an energetic level still is with us. Very many will, out of many different reasons, curiosity, because they need to, because they have karmic relationship with it, simply for an experience, will move into a transhumanism agenda where instead of utilizing your body's incredible capabilities by removing from our physical vehicles what should not be being placed into them, many people will go towards a transhumanism agenda of being connected, for example, through neural implants to quantum computers. And whereas this may appear to be very exciting and different and something that they will talk about as being good for the world, we have to remember that most of this talk about this is directed towards fear, and if you're not tuned into source and your intuition from that space, you will potentially not be receiving the necessary warnings about where that timeline is going to go. And again, I don't want to say negatively in a sense about it, to tell anyone, you can't go there, don't do that. I understand that very many different karmic experiences are being played out in this third dimensional reality here. And it's not my space to deny anyone their experiences. But if I can at least set a seed that there are many of us who have, for whatever reason or however it happened, either explored or experienced that route, or can see into the future enough simply without doing that to understand what will take place in the use of technologies when they're not done for the good of the all, but they become weapons in the hands of controllers. So it's important here to open up your intuition and really refine your intuitive senses so that you can receive what is best for you. And even if this is only a seed space that I'm planting, you have the opportunity to come back to this space in whatever lifetimes you move forward into, and you can come back to the timeline that you aren't going to choose that route, but you're going to choose the superhuman abilities, the limitless abilities that you can retune into in this physical vehicle without the negative side effects of what misuse of technology is definitely going to bring. Okay. So what I'm going to do in beginning is talk about the different ways that our intuition is interfered with. And one of them that I already talked about is how we are under the impression as a collective that only a few of us have strong intuitive abilities. And the only reason a person would have stronger intuitive abilities is because they developed it. So, in my opinion, I believe that everyone can tune back in. And what happens is when people like myself and other people who have activated these higher senses come into your presence, even in communication here tonight, you have an opportunity to tune back in to your intuitive senses and do that through sympathetic resonance. So when you are in the presence or work with a person who's more activated, has turned on DNA from the past that has these expression codes in them, you can then turn that on within you. Because the truth of the matter is here, when we trace back human vehicles, meaning the vehicle that we are all in that we refer to as human, there have been very many different influences on this vehicle. And yet, there is an original androgynous vehicle that first existed in coming up from and out of the animal forms. And if you, whether you want to look at it as coming through the animal realm and coming up and as an androgynous, what they would call a feline, more feline-like being, first of all, which is what a lot of people believe that the first being came through as, or if you are looking at, a God source creates Adam and Eve, whichever way you do that, it doesn't matter to me. The point is that there is an original space. And in that original space is referred to as living in a garden experience. As a collective, we were experiencing life from a collective construct of abundance for all, not limited resources. And if we look at that as a set of Russian dolls, once a template for the next Russian doll up had a fault in it, a flaw in it, which would be however it came in, limited belief systems, dogmatic belief systems, the belief that our neighbors are against us and here to take our resources, the belief that we have to defend ourselves from neighboring countries, warriors, the belief that there's not enough to go around, the belief in war is the only peace. So once we somehow ended up with that in our collective consciousness, we have continued to create that manifestation here in reality, as opposed to the truth that there is enough for everyone to go around. Because we have the limitless ability within us all to believe in limitless, and it will happen here. Because that is the nature and the truth of our original beginnings. Yet we have systematically, in order for this existence we're in to be controlled by the few, we needed to be limited and cut off from our intuitive senses. Because once we tune in fully to our intuitive awareness back to source, and we are hearing the true voice that you are me and I am you, and everything you need can be manifested here for everyone, for the collective good of the all. And even in that, there could be enough challenging experiences without having to be at the extremes of warring concepts and fear of our neighbors. But it will take us all tuning back in and dismantling these false beliefs that have become programs within us. Next, food choices. So our enteric nervous system, which consists of our esophagus all the way down to where we eliminate our foods from our body, the waste from the body, that entire long enteric system has its own nervous system. It consists of 100 million neurons and has been referred to now through scientific information as our second brain. And that is why people refer to having, I felt it in my gut says, my gut feelings are saying, you have feelings coming from your gut. And what they realized was that 90% of the fibers in our primary visceral nerve, which is the vagus nerve, carries information to the brain. It carries information from the gut to the brain. Okay, so one of our largest nerves is literally feeding our brain with feelings from our gut. So now, how many people have gut issues these days? Many. All of us. All of us do. All of us, because we have all been consuming foods that have been modified. So today's talk even is consistent with the data that were my last 5 talks, 3 of them on how to consume a healthier food based by changing our diet to more plant-based foods in order to heal our gut, and which of those plant-based foods are better for us. So what has taken place in genetically modified foods, hybridized foods, processed foods, and so on, from fluoride to chemtrails, what we're breathing in, the chemicals that are around us, the heavy metals that we're experiencing, is all going through this and affecting the way we think, which is a very big reason why so many more people are experiencing issues of depression and anxiety and stress based on these feelings that are coming from our enteric nervous system, because these foods are not happy foods. They have been taken from their natural vibrations and they have been altered. So their vibrations have been reduced because of what's been done to them in many different ways. And what takes place then is, one, if we're trying to receive our intuition and we are maybe getting a good intuitive hit on something, or we're, even a psychic receiving something intuitive, the next process that happens is we're still using our intuition on what to do with that information. And that information that we receive, one, can be blocked with this process. 2, if the intuition makes it through that process, what still is affecting what we do with it is the emotions coming from these foods. So these foods can even interfere with what decision we are making with the information that we receive. So, and we need to be able to have as clear of our inner filters in our energy systems as possible. And sometimes food is a very overlooked area here, and chemicals. So one part then, again, is to look into the information about food, and such as what I talked about in those shows, as to how this is angry DNA that we are putting in our body, and then we have these feelings within us to deal with. So, hold on here. That space in changing our personal filters is something that, as let's say, for example, as I was talking about, we are going to receive intuitive information. And as a receiver of intuitive information, we have to remember that everything comes through the intuitive person's filters. And that person's filters have all of their own experiences up to date that have to come through when they are receiving information. And so the clearest that we as intuitive workers can be, people who work in this field, that's very important. And it's important for you, the receiver, to understand that we may not always be 100% on. So it's best for you to always remember to take intuitive information with a grain of salt and utilize your discernment in what you are receiving. As someone who has, worked for 20 years in this field and observing my own filters coming through, we have to work very, very hard to keep our filters clear for when we are receiving information. And it is a refinement. Okay, so we have to both heal ourselves, and that helps us to have better, clear information coming through when we are delivering this intuitive information to others. And it would not be as difficult if we weren't working to take out everything that's inside of us that should have never been there in the first place. And as children, this was a skill that was and understood and utilized, but it is the way it is, and as it is such, that's what we're working on right now. And then a second area, as a receiver of intuitive information, sometimes what happens with the recipient is that, and I've had this happen, where I'm fully aware that the person sitting in front of me wants me, in some cases, to tell them something that they are having a hard time coming up to and reconfirming and making sure that they process that information and work with it. And yet, in hearing some information, they may have an angry, shocking response that is more what we would term as cognitive dissonance. And that is where something is, in receiving the intuition and clear information at times, we're not ready for our paradigm to be broken down yet. For example, I had worked with a client, and I knew when she came to me that her symptoms that she was experiencing at the time were because of the side effects of medications she was still taking. And she had been on medications for 30 years, and it was very clear that it was medications. And each time she would come in, I would say, do an emotional freedom technique session, and the symptoms would go away. But by the next week or maybe the next 2 weeks, it would come back again. And so I heard her clearly stating, and she used the words, I've really had enough. And she just stopped and looked at me. And I knew intuitively she was asking me to say it. And when I said it, she was polite, but when she left, and then when she returned, she came back in and she said, I have to tell you that I was furious when I left here. I was angry by, you stating that it could have been the medications. And, but you know what? It's what I really want, and it's what I'm going to do. And with that, she was under medical care. She communicated, of course, with her physicians and told them she would be coming off the medications. And I did not make the decision for her, but I definitely intuitively knew I was informing her of something that she wanted to do. And in that time of working with her, her statement was that she got farther ahead in 3 months of working with me than 30 years of medications, counseling, therapy, psychologists, and such. And this was the missing ingredient. And that is what I've mentioned in other shows, not a point of saying that the other spaces were not serving her in some way. She was simply ready to hear a different level of truth, and she came here for that level of truth, and that was my skill level. So it works on both areas, and the point being that we have to all be very careful with what we believe we are receiving is our intuition, because it's very easy to want to believe something and then make it that space. So as a note before I go to a commercial break here, it's a space that we want to give our time and devotion and patience to, and yet know that once you tune in, there are moments where you simply know without a doubt something, and that information can be exceptionally life transforming and beneficial to you. So with that, I'm going to go to a commercial break. I will see you back in approximately a little under 3 minutes. And after, we are going to begin right away with doing some visualization exercises to increase your intuition.
Feminine Frequency Radio Network hosts shows 7 days a week. Call in to listen live 929-477-1183 and dial 1 to connect to the studio to ask a question, or listen online via blogtalkradio.com/Feminine Frequency Radio Network. Organic Frequency Radio Show is 1.5 hour live chat with Stephanie and Oksana and their lovely guests about the nature of existence and holistic way of living here and now, and perhaps even after. Join us every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Call-in number to listen live is 929-477-1183, and to ask a question, press 1 to connect to the studio. Our guests share their stories and walking path of their healing, along with services that they have developed and packaged for the rest of the world to experience and benefit from. We're here to hold a space for an exchange of experiences for the purpose of evolvement and expansion of consciousness.
Hello and welcome. You are now entering the corridors of Twilight Epiphanies Talk Radio with your host, Cindy Magnuson, premiering Thursday evenings, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Feminine Frequency Radio Network. You are invited on a talk radio journey to the center of self. Join us as Cindy guides you, the listeners, in sensory and perception upgrades where revelations and golden epiphanies pierce the veils of illusion. Don't miss this opportunity for your next dose of Twilight Epiphanies. Okay, hello and welcome back. So for this part of the show, I'm going to do guided visualizations that bring in your other senses and perceptions. We'll do 5 different exercises, and then after that, I'm going to lead you through where you will work with your own intuition on receiving something that I set up as an exercise here to determine your ability to receive an image or hear something or taste or even smell something, okay? So sitting back there and in a relaxed space, bringing yourself to a deeper sense of calm. We'll begin, first of all, in a seated position with your spine a little bit more straight, but you do not have to be rigid. And bring your consciousness from the top of your head, coming through your body, move it through your torso, down past your hips, through your thighs, past your knees, and down out through the bottom of your feet. You want to bring your roots all the way down to the core of the earth and wrap your roots around the core of the earth. You are grounding your energies to the magnetic field of the earth. And from here, our mantra, even though I have not yet fully developed all of my intuitive faculties, I am choosing to open these natural intuitive pathways as my higher knowing knows will be best for me. I am choosing to participate in refining and developing through my perception and awareness of connecting the dots together to observe how I felt something special at that moment and what information that moment was bringing me. I choose to tune into nature to guide me through signs in the skies and signs on the earth, to be able to listen to the wind, to feel the messages in the wind, to know the messages in the clouds. To sense which voice inside me is best guiding me. I am choosing to work diligently, as I have the time to, on clearing my inner filters, on evolving my own soul, allowing the true original DNA activations that connect me to divine source God guidance. I am deserving of this space. I allow this space to be developed in my own personal way as I see it best. So be it. And from here, you can keep your eyes closed and begin with this visualization. Picture in your mind a table, any size, shape, or color. On the table, place a beautiful tall blue vase. From the right side of your visualization, pick up a perfect red rose and place that rose in the blue vase. Now, from the left field of your mind, pick up a beautiful prize-winning yellow rose and place this in the blue vase next to the red rose. Now, directly in front of you, you will see a pure white rose. Place this rose in the vase also. For just a minute here, hold the entire picture in your mind. The blue vase, the white rose, the yellow rose and the red rose. Work on refining your ability to hold that image in your mind. And I'm just going to be a little silent here and give us a few seconds more in holding this image. And now I want you to lean over, move forward towards that image, and smell those roses. Let the aroma of those freshly open aromatic roses blend together and filling your nasal passages with the beautiful aroma of rose. What does the red rose smell like? What does the yellow rose smell like? Is it a little sweeter? What does the white rose smell like? Does it have a hint of something aromatic that you've smelled before? A beautiful perfume. Okay. And exercise number 2. You have built a camp beside a gently flowing river and a quiet wooded valley. You are gathering sticks and wood, and you build a warm, crackling campfire. See the flames leaping against the night smell. Bring that smoke into your nostrils. Can you smell the burning wood scent filling your nostrils? Feel the warmth of the fire. And now you are placing a coffee pot on the flames to boil, and you can smell the coffee aroma. As you smell the coffee, you begin to listen to the quiet evening sounds around you. Suddenly, a truck roars by on the adjacent roadway. Listen as it fades away and the night becomes quiet again. Listen to the sound of the water murmuring against the Somewhere a frog croaks, and then you hear the answering cry of a nearby night bird. Is that an owl hooting in the distance? A soft, refreshing breeze moves across your face as you reach down and touch the moist, cool earth. Exercise 3. You've built a bird feeder outside your window. See the birds hopping around and chirping to each other. It is time to feed the birds, and you pick up the birdseed box. Hear the birdseed rattle against the box as you shake some into the bird feeder. As you're watching the birds feeding, suddenly one bird bursts into singing. So you move back in and you sit down and you take a warm, furry puppy onto your lap. You're stroking its warm, wiggly body and ruffling its ears. It licks you with a smooth, friendly tongue. As you let the puppy go, you pick up a soft, cuddly kitten in your lap. What color is the kitten? The kitten curls up and goes to sleep as you stroke its fur and you're hearing the purrs of its contentment. Exercise 4. We've been invited by a friend to a backyard picnic. We're all sitting in pleasant company, enjoying the smells from the grill. Is our host using hickory or charcoal? As we are listening to the hissing flames, your favorite meal is cooking on that grill. What is it that you're listening to that's cooking on that grill? As you take that food from the grill and go back over, you're looking at the picnic table. What kind of wood is it made of? What kind of material is covering it? What kind of dishes and cutlery are being used? Our host is serving your favorite main dish, whatever that is. Feel and have your taste buds start to be thinking about bringing that food to your mouth and having that flavor, that delicious flavor of your most favorite food inside your mouth. Now, you pick up a cookie. Your host has baked your favorite cookies. Whatever that favorite cookie is, you are bringing that up to your mouth and tasting that cookie and savoring how delicious this home-baked cookie is. And for one last sense, there's homemade pickles on the table. And you go over and take one of those large garlic pickles and you take a big bite. And that pickle is crunchy and tart and garlicky and delicious. And this is the best picnic you've ever been to. Exercise number 5. And this one is for emotion. Think of someone here that you love very much. Anyone, a family member, an animal, a child, anyone. Visualize his or her face. Hold your loved one's hand and feel the shape and warmth of that hand. Now embrace your loved one. Savor the good feeling of love and companionship. Kiss your loved one, and while still holding the feeling of love and friendliness, project this feeling out to everyone around you right now. If you wish, to everyone in the world, to everyone in the audience here, we are projecting that warm feeling of love out to everyone, each and every one of us. Store this feeling in your heart, in your mind. And when we have those feelings that want to bring us out of this space, we know that we can go back here and remind ourselves of this important feeling of love and warmth and bring that back into our inner being. Okay, and we can take a little bit of a breath here. And exhale and bring ourselves a little bit back up and out of that. Okay. So what we were experiencing there were some of what the intuitive senses are that we call clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, where we see images in our mind's eye. Clairsentience, which is feeling. We can have the same feelings that are evoked even though the person is not with us again. They're directly with us. Clairaudience, we can hear sounds again in our psychic ears ability. Clairaudience, which is clear smell, and claircognizance, which is clear taste. And the other clear sense there is called claircognizance, where something just pops into our head. So these senses are some of the more primary receptive centers, and as you can see, they are simply a second set of what our true senses here are. But many of you may have realized that with that visualization, it wasn't very difficult for you to have strong sense of what you were tuning into through those exercises. And exercises like this are what will bring you closer to receiving intuitive information. And the most important way that we refine these abilities is through exercises, awareness, and our perception while we are present and in the moment. So what is important here is that we are developing this relationship because we are choosing to be observant of receiving this information and by our intent to do it. And then in order to determine how our skills are developing, we can work with others and ask them if we can tune into them. So I'll tell you a cute story that just popped into my mind. One woman that I was working with, I had taught her Reiki, and she wanted her senses to increase. So I told her actually, she was trying to work on animal communication at the time. So, and I had taught animal communication for a little while. And when at that time, we had a cockatiel at home, and I think there were 2 of them in the cage. So I told her that this was a very kind of a big character cockatiel. There were 2 of them in there, and that she would probably be able to tune into him and receive some information. So over a week's time, she received information and just practiced with that, and then called me up after a week, and we looked at how she did, and she did excellent. So one of the things that she had said was, well, he is telling me that there are all these colorful flip-flops around. And now she had not been to my house, and she didn't know that I had been shoe shopping. And in the entrance to my home that came up as an inside stairway in the condo, the second floor area where the bird was looked right down onto the staircase. And what I had done was I had been to a place and purchased all of these different colored new summer shoes because I got this great deal. And there were about 10 pairs of shoes, and I had lined each one of them up on the stairs, and he was looking down at them. So she had received that he was looking at these colorful flip-flops. Now, I don't know if she heard that through clairaudience, or she saw that in her mind's eye, or it just popped into her mind through claircognizance, clear knowing, or it was just some kind of a subtle perception somehow. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to determine how we're receiving this information, and they kind of mix together a little bit. Something that I experienced when I was doing Reiki was that I immediately was clairsentient, which is clear feeling. So because I work as an empath, which I simply discovered I tune into people's feelings more, when I lay my hands on someone, I would get feelings in my perception, my body, where they were having an issue, and I would keep my hands in a certain place until I felt the issue relax in my system. And then what would inadvertently happen was the person would end up doing a big sigh right when I knew that it was releasing. So you can always confirm that way that my intuitive feeling perceptions were truly happening. And then I noticed that I was also able to first tune in and have images in my mind's eye. And I would not have maybe a super strong image all the time, but after a while, that image became stronger. And for me, in refining my ability, and this is how it taught me, that when I was trying to tune into someone, say an animal, once I had the animal's image in my mind's eye, I was then able to know that I was connected and receiving information. So I could then logically ask the animal questions, and the animal would begin to answer me. Now, I would just go through this space, though, originally, and think that one of my intuitive perceptions would just pop in. But then I realized that once I clarified that I have these different faculties, I could ask for a different method to be received. So I wanted to develop my clairaudience. So there were times when, instead of receiving images, which became easier for me, I asked to receive messages. And I still do use that when I work with clients. I will lay my hands on and sometimes occasionally say, what is the message that the tissues are saying here? And they very often carry a dialogue of a situation that is the most common wording that is causing the stress and is related to the first root issue in that area. So you can ask for these different faculties to turn on and work on developing them one at a time. So when you are working here in a little bit, I'm going to bring you into an experiment here where we're going to work on each one of these senses one at a time and have you tune into them. So just to remind you again, you will have your own inner development unfold, and it may come in differently than another person's way that it comes in. And just let it free flow for you. If you want to develop this, it will happen. I absolutely love having the space. I do not always still have 100% accuracy. So there are times when, and the less accuracy is for myself. So it's definitely a little more difficult to receive for self than it is for me to receive for other people. So with other people, I can go to a blank slate, no expectations, completely go blank and let it flow in. With me, I know my own emotional spaces that may block a pure reception of information. So let's say it depends upon what we're attempting to look at, because if we are asking a question and we have an emotional fear that's in there, some memory from the past may be what is responding than our true intuitive voice. And that's where we simply have to refine it through hindsight. Hindsight is the only way that we learn here. So there's nothing wrong with being, wrong here, with everything that we're going to test coming up here. It doesn't matter. If you want to increase your intuitive abilities, however you're going to learn will come up. And what I mean by this is, so take for example, I was online today and I was researching information and ideas, and there was this intuitive test, and I scored miserably on it, and yet, and I didn't have to say I didn't try very hard, and I didn't even have a feeling to do this very well. I had no interest in answering those types of questions because they weren't important to me. They just simply weren't information that I would try or need to know. But when I work intuitively with people, I'm in a heightened space of passion that I do, and it's 100% easier. But a different type of intuitive person would be more tuned into that type of space. So remember, it's going to open up to however you are functioning or want to function with it. So the first thing that we're going to do is, and I'm not going to make this very difficult, I'm going to give you some hints. So the first test that you're going to do here, and I'm going to give the answers after we complete the whole test, is I am holding a crystal in my hands right now. So you are going to go into your clairvoyant inner eye, your third eye, the pictures that you can see in your inner eye. Close your eyes, and this is a crystal. And what you can attempt to do in two ways is name the general shape of the crystal and what kind of crystal it is. Anything that comes into your mind's eye, and I'm going to be silent for a little bit here just to give you an opportunity to tune in. Okay. Now, I want to tell you also, sometimes psychic impressions come very quickly. Other times, it takes a minute or two in order to tune in. Okay? So what I'm hoping is that since we have been intending to be in a more intuitive space, that our senses are a little bit heightened already. So our next sense is we're going to go to clear smelling. And I have an essential oil here that I am opening up. I am smelling that essential oil. So when you tune into what I am smelling right now, and again, I'm going to give you a little quiet time to tune into that. Okay. And this next one is going to be taste. So I have a food item here, and I'm just going to put this into my mouth now and begin eating this. And it's really good. So I can feel that all over in my mouth. And I'm going to give you some time to tune into that. For a second taste, I have a beverage here, and I am now going to be drinking that beverage. Swirling that around in my mouth. And I'll give you a little time to tune into that. Okay. Now, claircognizance is where something just pops into your head. And so what I'm going to do with that is, without you attempting to picture it in your mind's eye, name one item that is on my desk here that I work at. That would not be a common item, you know, like a pencil or a pencil holder, a stapler. Name one item that was a personal gift to me. I don't believe I've ever done any pictures of these. What pops into your head is a gift that someone gave me that is on my work desk here. Just let it pop into your head. Next, we are going to work with clairaudience. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut off the mic for, say, 30 seconds. And I am going to repeat 2 phrases, 3 words each. I'm going to say it out loud. I'm going to say each of those phrases 3 times, but each phrase is 3 words. And so here I go. I'm going to close out the mic, and I will be back in about 30 seconds after I repeat these phrases. Okay. So in there, you are working with clairaudience and your ability to hear messages. Now, the next one is clairsentience, which is clear feeling. So I have an object in my hands, and it has a specific feel to it. I am rubbing my hand on this particular object, and you can go into your feeling centers and ask for what sensation is on my hands as I am putting my hands over this object. Okay, very good. So that brings us to the end of our tests. And now you get to see how you scored. Okay. So the very first object that I was holding in my hands is a rose quartz heart-shaped crystal. And it is maybe about 1.5 inches long. Like I said, heart-shaped rose quartz. Now, you may have had a partial hit on this, okay? Even if you thought it was quartz, if you picked up a round shape, you're getting there, okay? So definitely allow yourself to the credit for even coming close. And now what may happen here when I give you the answers to this is that you're going to go back in and you're going to find that you may have thought rose quartz in there, but then you went away from it. Now, so what happens here is you have the opportunity to go back in and remember what it felt like to pick up the rose quartz, because that's what it feels like with clear reception. So that's what you're doing in these exercises. You are building an inner witness through this hindsight. Even in making mistakes is important, because now if you didn't do it, you know what this intuitive sense doesn't feel like. And I want us all to remember, I might sit in the audience there and not score big on this, because it may not be the space that is where I have my full interest in. So allow yourself, the understanding that this is an exercise to bring you into finding how you are best going to develop your intuitive abilities, okay? So the sense of smell is cedarwood. So the essential oil that I was smelling is cedarwood. So if you came anywhere close to that, go back in, give yourself credit for that. The food item that I was eating was pineapple. So even if you picked up something yellow, that was pineapple. Very sweet. If you picked up something sweet, you were in the general neighborhood. If you picked up something juicy, you were in the general neighborhood. The beverage that I was drinking is lemonade, fresh squeezed lemonade. So if you were feeling when I drank it anything tart in your mouth or sour or even a little bit sour sweet, sweet sour, something fresh, refreshing, that I was drinking fresh squeezed lemonade. Feeling. I have a foxtail here that someone brought me, and I was stroking the fur on the foxtail. Okay. And for gifts, now gifts would be on my desk here. So I have a lot of gifts. I have, of course, crystals. I have a crystal owl. I have a crystal tree that was recently a gift. I have grandbabies' gifts, nature items. I have a bundle of feathers that my middle granddaughter made for me. I have dried flowers that someone gave me. I have a keychain that someone gave me. I have multiple cards that were gifts that someone gave me. I have Kuan Yin, which she was pictured, and you may have seen that. I have other feathers that I have been given. So, and if there is anything else that you picked up and you would like to write in and ask me about, feel free to write and ask me if this was something that was on my desk here. So that is concluding our show tonight on intuition. And to round up again, give yourself the time to work with this that you need. Be patient with yourself and truly remember, every time, even when we make a mistake, we learn something. And we have to be able to learn to differentiate between whether what we are hearing in our minds or feeling or sensing is something from a memory, so we expect it, is something from our logical mind that pops in, and is coming more from a left brain side as opposed to coming from pure, clear reception. And those places inside of us have different feels to them. When we are in more of a pure reception, we will develop within ourselves a perceptual feeling that notifies you that you are receiving or about to receive, or there's a message in the airwaves here. Pay attention. You're going to see an omen or something that you see that's out of the ordinary. That means something. You may receive, and may tonight have received, symbols in your mind, or even started to drift off in your mind and think about something that pertained to you, but it had something to do with the information that was here. Intuition is received that way, in symbolic form. Whatever your mental frames are can become incorporated, in a sense, into how you're receiving, if you receive them properly, for the energetics that are there. So when I was stroking the fur, you might have thought of your animal, something about your animal all of a sudden. And that's been the way that your intuition was telling you. So allow yourself to be open to this. And then what you do is you build up what I call the inner witness within you. Something that happens with me, because this is how it just showed me and developed. I began to do my EFT sessions, and I noticed that when I sit across from the person, I start to tune into them slowly and more. And even when I'm talking with them and helping them to reframe wording, that I would feel pings in me, which were pings in their body, because blocks were being released merely with communication. And then I would notice that the sound of my voice sometimes would become more clear the tone would sound different, and then we would even hear an echo in the room. Not only me, but the other people in a room with 3 other people as students all heard the same echo. There are times when the hue in the room changes. There are other times when someone says something and I can tell by the tone that something's not right there. That's a hit. That needs to be worked on. And then I feel it in a sense in my body is empathy. At other times, I have literally felt someone's left and right brain arc and bridge together, balancing the hemispheres of their brain. When someone goes through a clearing, I feel a big whoosh through me, and I know that they cleared. If I give someone an affirmation that is neutralizing one of their inner programs that has a resonance buildup of trauma around a certain wording, because the word describes the exact emotion in there, and it clears, I immediately get a buzz in my legs. And then if it's an emotional release, I'll feel it within me. These are my symbols that I've developed through working and refining. And you can also work with these. This is open for you to fully develop also. And I wish that for all of you who do wish to bring this space back so that we can apply it as a collective to change the world from the inside out, so that our perceptions of reality that we wish to be seen can be strong and believed in again through developing these intuitive awarenesses, because it strengthens a lot about us. So that brings us to the ending tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. I am going to end the show with 2 commercials, since I did end up skipping the second set of them. And I'm going to say goodbye here. I will be announcing the next series of talks within the week here. I wish you all well, health, happiness, love, and abundance. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Feminine Frequency Radio Network hosts shows 7 days a week. Call in to listen live 929-477-1183 and dial 1 to connect to the studio to ask a question, or listen online via blogtalkradio.com/Feminine Frequency Radio Network. Organic Frequency Radio Show is 1.5 hour live chat with Stephanie and Oksana and their lovely guests about the nature of existence and holistic way of living here and now, and perhaps even after. Join us every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Call-in number to listen live is 929-477-1183, and to ask a question, press 1 to connect to the studio. Our guests share their stories and walking path of their healing, along with services that they have developed and packaged for the rest of the world to experience and benefit from. We're here to hold a space for an exchange of experiences for the purpose of evolvement and expansion of consciousness.
Hello and welcome. You are now entering the corridors of Twilight Epiphanies Talk Radio with your host, Cindy Magnuson, premiering Thursday evenings, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Feminine Frequency Radio Network. You are invited on a talk radio journey to the center of self. Join us as Cindy guides you, the listeners,
in sensory and perception upgrades where revelations and golden epiphanies pierce the veils of illusion. Don't miss this opportunity for your next dose of Twilight Epiphanies.